the Senate will come to order. Senator Kafalis will lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Madam President Pro Tem. Members, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Majors, would you please call the roll?
Aguilar, Balmer, Baumgartner, Brophy, Cadman, Crowder, Grantham, Guzman, Harvey, Heath, Herpin, Hill,
Excused?
Hodge, John, Johnston, Johnston,
Absent?
Jones, Kafalis, Kerr, King, Lambert, Lundberg, Marble, Newell, Nicholson, Renfro, Rivera, Roberts, Scheffel, Schwartz, Stedman, Toktrop, Todd, Ulibarri, Zenzinger. Madam President.
Here. Please add Senator Johnston. With 34 ayes, 0 absent, 1 excused, we have a quorum. Motion to adopt the journal, Senator Herpin.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the reading of the journal for Thursday, February 13th, 2014 be dispensed with and the journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion is adopted. Senate Services.
February 14, 2014, correctly printed, Senate Bill 146, correctly engrossed, Senate Joint Resolution 8, correctly enrolled, Senate Joint Resolution 7.
Message from the House.
February 13, 2014, Madam President, the House has adopted and returns here with Senate Joint Resolution 8.
Message from the Reviser.
February 13, 2014, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bills 1030 and 1110.
Introduction of resolutions.
Senate Joint Resolution 12 by Senators Kafalis and Newell and Representative McCann concerning Human Trafficking Awareness Advocacy Day.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. And before I get into the formal part, let me wish everybody happy Valentine's Day. A lot of smiling faces. Madam President, I move that Senate Joint Resolution 12 lay over until Thursday, February 20th.
Heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senate Joint Resolution 12 will lay over until February 20th. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Joint Resolution 13?
Senate Joint Resolution 13 by Senators Cadman and Carroll and Representatives Del Grosso and Ferrandino concerning support for Denver's bid to host the 2016 Republican National Convention.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the Senate Joint Resolution 13 lay over until Tuesday, February 18th.
Heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senate Joint Resolution 13 will lay over until February 18th. Committee reports.
February 13, 2014, Madam President, the Committee on Health and Human Services has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointments. Recommends the appointments be confirmed. Members of the Hospital Provider Fee Oversight and Advisory Board for terms expiring May 15, 2017, Dr. Jeremiah A. Bartley of Brighton, Colorado, a member of the healthcare industry who does not represent a hospital or health insurance carrier, reappointed. Mina Ramirez Castro of Thornton, Colorado, a consumer of healthcare who is not a representative or an employee of a hospital, health insurance carrier, or other healthcare industry entity, appointed. James E. Schmerling of Denver, Colorado, an employee of a Safety Net Hospital in Colorado, reappointed. February 13, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration on the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: Senate Bill 128 be postponed indefinitely. February 13, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration on the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: Senate Bill 99 be amended as follows, and as so amended before the Committee on Finance with favorable recommendation. February 13, 2014, Committee on Health and Human Services, after consideration on the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: Senate Bill 88 be amended as follows, and as so amended before the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. February 13, 2014, Committee on Finance, after consideration on the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: Senate Bill 43 be amended as follows, and as so amended before the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. February 13, 2014, Committee on Finance, after consideration on the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following: Senate Bill 46 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Third reading of bills. Third reading of bills. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to House Bill 1164?
House Bill 1164 by Representative Hollinghorst and Senator Ulibarri, concerning nonpartisan elections not coordinated by county clerk and recorder, and in connection therewith creating the Colorado Local Government Election Code for the conduct of such elections by special districts, harmonizing residency requirements for voter registration, modifying the Colorado Municipal Code of 1965, and clarifying when elections are coordinated by county clerks and recorders.
Senator Ulibarri.
Thank you, Madam President. I move House Bill 1164 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1164? Senator Brophy.
I got to stop doing that. Thank you, Madam President. And members, I will once again ask you to vote no on this bill. And after all of the discussion on this bill earlier on seconds and then again on thirds, I want to come up here and tell you that I think you were misinformed about what the bill actually does. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. To summarize what the bill does, the sponsor assured all of us that it's no big change, that special districts were already operating under this part of the statutes. 4 times, the part that governs municipal elections only, which isn't as rigorously watched, which isn't or doesn't have the rigorous oversight that elections under the Uniform Election Code has. And these are for the special districts. These are taxing districts. This is taking money out of the pockets of hardworking Coloradans, potentially. 4 times we were told that this is no big change, that the special districts already operate under this code, but they do not, unless you pass this bill. You were misinformed by the sponsor of the bill as to what this legislation does, and because of that, you should vote no. It doesn't do what you were told it does. It does something significant. And you should vote against it. We can start over. It's not too late. This bill needs to go away because it doesn't do what you were told that it does. Vote no.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, the question for Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, we have spent a lot of time on this, and we heard a lot of good points made here, I think, about this bill, and some hearty discussion, a lot of questions that were raised, but also a lot of questions that were left unanswered about this piece of legislation. Another senator stood here the other day and asked many questions, none of which were even attempted to be really answered. We talked about some of the issues of selecting which portions of this newly created election code are these special districts going to choose from. There is a pick and choose aspect to this that is rather disconcerting. Are they going to pick from one portion or the other, from this portion or from Article 13.5? Which one is actually going to be followed for these elections? It actually leaves it up to the election official to pick and choose from the menu what they want to follow, and the end result is no uniform code for these election officials to go to. It says that they can defer to this or that in lieu of all other portions of this article. They can take 13.5 and follow it as their election code, or they can take portions of 13.5 and follow that as their election code. The big question then is, it actually goes on to state in the bill, all provisions of the Uniform Election Code of 1992 not in conflict with this article apply to local government elections. So it doesn't actually release these local district elections or the officials from any of those provisions of the election code, the Uniform Election Code, the rest of the Title I election law. It simply gives them the options of those particulars within 13.5. So here's the question, and I hope at least this time it will be answered, as it was already asked by one of my colleagues. What of the other requirements within this election law are they subject to? Are the special district elections and election officials subject to? Which ones are they subject to? Which ones are optional for them to follow or to pick and choose from, including the Secretary of State's rules for elections? What about that, being subject to the oversight of the Secretary of State's office? Are they or are they not? Are they exempted or are they under full oversight? We have seen these examples. We heard that in debate that the Secretary of State apparently doesn't want to have anything to do with this, and county clerks want to wash their hands of this as well. That may not be. We've heard conflicting testimony on that actually right here from this well. The claims that there are only 2 clerks opposed to this, when in fact I know that is not the case. Are these election officials, are they subject or are they not subject to the oversight? That is another question. Another one, will there be voting system testings as required by the Secretary of State for elections? Will the equipment necessarily be required to go through all the testing anyway? Are they going to be subject to the testing that is necessary for these machines, or are they not? What about the post-election audits? What about provisional ballots? What are the requirements? What are the requirements that we're dealing with here? Are there any left? Answers would be welcome. What about bilingual ballot requirements? Is that an element that is necessary to be considered here? What are the differences between the special district election and other elections? What about score? Is there to be an interface with the score system? Vote centers. Are these polling places or vote centers that are required in elections? Are they required for special district elections as well? the hundreds of voting locations that are typically required for elections, are they required for these as well? Do they apply or do they not apply to these special district elections within that geographical area for the special district? These are questions I think that deserve answers, that need to be understood. I think the presumption is that this is what it says and that all of those things do apply and that those elements are incorporated into special district elections or should be. And the only exception would be if somewhere in 1164 it states specifically that 13.5 in the Article 13.5 that it is exempted. Be nice to have the answer to, but that is not in there. Folks, we have a lot of work yet to do on our election code and on this bill. This does not meet the needs, as the prior senator just said. This does not do what we are told that it does. We have a lot of work to do. Let's start over. Let's take a breath. Let's get it right. This doesn't have to be the issue between the aisles that it is. We can actually work on this and make good election law that is good for all of Colorado, all the special districts, regardless of party. Thank you, Madam President.
Additional discussion. Question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 11. Sorry, if I don't see you in the well, sometimes I don't see you. Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam President. Sorry I was off on the side, not down here. I apologize for that. I just wanted to come down and speak since I wasn't here the other day when we had this debate, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to get to air some of my concerns, and they should be all of our concerns. And I want to start by saying something that I think every member that is considering voting for this piece of legislation should consider. And it's what President Reagan said: trust but verify. Trust but verify. Are you sure, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this bill does what you think it does, what you've been told it does? Because I think you're hearing comments from one party that this bill does not do what it says. It doesn't do what the sponsor says it does. Currently, under the Uniform Election Code, we have all elected officials under that code. All state elected officials under that code. All special districts, all county elections under that code. But what we've had is we've had debate and discussion and explanation of this bill as if everybody's been operating under the municipal code. Do you know the difference? Do you know what this bill really does? Do you know what you've been told, what is true and what isn't true? On 4 occasions in the closing comments on this bill, we were told that they already operate under, that special districts were using the municipal code. That is false. 4 times. This is the text of the closing words of the sponsor of this bill. I could understand we all have a slip of the tongue at times, but do you know what this bill really does? We made mistakes with last year's bill. I think everybody would admit that with 1303. Some would say a lot more mistakes than others. Let's fix this one and not let a mistake leave this chamber in this form. I ask for a no vote on this bill.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Madam President. I come up in part because things have been said about me taking my name off this bill, and I just want to set the record straight as to why that's happened. It hasn't happened because I was bullied. It hasn't happened because I received extreme partisan email that told me I needed to get off it. I'm getting off it, or asked to get off it, because I don't fully understand this. I have to say that last year's bill, I voted no, and I was concerned about the implications in all 8 counties that I had. I relied on a particular association telling me it was a good bill, and yet when I checked around, I found out that my clerks had different ideas on this. So I just want to be very clear that nobody bullies me, and this was something that I had great concern about, that we were putting an awful lot into effect this year again, without totally understanding, or at least I don't totally understand how this is going to play out. So again, because I've seen press releases go out, I just wanted to set the record straight. No one bullies me. I make my own decisions, and I do not support this bill. I wish we would take a 2-year timeout, as has been proposed, as a way to work across the aisle and try and figure out, this is important. We all know that. But it is different economies of the scale on the Front Range versus the rural areas. I think people with good intentions have come to the table, but I don't think we have the right answer. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Senator Crowder. Guys should be in the well to get recognized. Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam President. You know, this bill is a contentious bill for both sides. But now I think we are called upon to show some of that courage that we claim we all have to do this right. I agree with the previous senator. I don't quite understand it all. I'm not saying that it's wrong, because I don't know, because I don't understand it all. But I think it's time that we took a breather on this and used some of that courage that we need, that we rely on, to say, is this right for the people of the state of Colorado? But I think it'd be prudent in this particular case, and I commend the sponsor for bringing this forward, you know, and he's given us the information in which he has, and I'm sure he's doing it in a very honorable fashion. But I think on this particular bill, we might want to just take a little break on it and see if we can't come to an understanding on it so that we all do understand it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam President. This is important. I want to read the quotes so that you can hear this, actual words of what we're talking about and why we think we need to slow this process down. What does this bill do? What is it about? Which code are we talking about? What are they operating under? What are they going to operate under? Quote, we've talked about the second piece, which is about creating a Colorado local government code. There's been a lot of debate about that, but what we have essentially done is take the election practices that happened in the municipal code, and again, before the introduction of this bill, our special districts, our special districts largely utilized the municipal code for running their elections. Later, there was a question raised. I want to respond to the question that was raised. In 1310-102, in the definition section, which is specifically the municipal election code, it was said that watcher means a registered elector of the municipality. So again, special districts were using the municipal code. False. Later on, that's why there was a necessity to create the same type of clarity for those local governments. So if there was concern about that point, to thank you for raising the questions. I wanted to be clear where it came from. It actually came straight from the municipal code, which is where our special districts have used those specific regulations time and time again. Again, a fourth time. In doing so, there have been a whole host of issues that have been raised about how special district elections have always been conducted. The purpose of the bill was not to change how special districts conducted their elections. What does the bill do? Do you really know? Vote no on this bill in this form. Unless we get answers to this, you've been told one thing, and I'm here to say that I think it's false what we've been told on this bill. Vote no.
Any further discussion? Question for the body is the adoption of House Bill 1164 on third reading and final passage. A roll call vote has been requested. Mr. Majors, would you please poll the senators?
Aguilar. Aguilar, aye. Balmer. Balmer, no. Baumgartner. Baumgartner, no. Brophy. Brophy, no. Cadman. Cadman, no. Crowder. Crowder, no. Grantham. Grantham, no. Guzman. Guzman, aye. Harvey. Harvey, no. Heath. Heath, aye. Herpin. Herpin, no. Hill excused. Hodge. Hodge, aye. John. John, aye. Johnston. Johnston, aye. Jones. Jones, aye. Kafalis. Kafalis, aye. Kerr. Kerr, aye. King. King, no. Lambert. Lambert, no. Lundberg. Lundberg, no. Marble. Marble, no. Newell. Newell, aye. Nicholson. Nicholson, aye. Renfro. Renfro, no. Rivera. Rivera, no. Roberts. Roberts, no. Sheffel. Sheffel, no. Schwartz. Schwartz, aye. Stedman. Stedman, aye. Toktrop. Toktrop, aye. Todd. Todd, aye. Ulibarri. Ulibarri, aye. Zenzinger. Zenzinger, aye. Madam President.
Aye.
Madam President, aye.
With 18 ayes, 16 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, House Bill 1164 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general orders and the bills consent calendar.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for purposes of considering general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Nicholson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles to all the bills listed on the consent calendar?
Senate Bill 119 by Senators Heath Cadman, Representatives Hollingworth and Del Grosso, concerning the decriminalization of certain prohibited practices by persons engaged in lobbying. Senate Bill 132 by Senator Crowder and Ulibarri and Representatives Gardner and Exum, concerning the repeal of the requirement that a soldier be killed while deployed to a combat zone to issue a fallen soldier license plate. Senate Bill 97 by Senator Toktrop, concerning the immunity of public agencies against liability arising from the wildfire mitigation activities of insurance companies. House Bill 1081 by Representatives Fisher and Szabo and Senators Baumgartner and John, concerning the state motor carrier safety fund and in connection therewith creating the fund, transferring money from the hazardous material safety fund to the motor carrier safety fund, and specifying that any excess uncommitted reserves in the Public Utilities Commission motor carrier fund be transferred to the motor carrier safety fund. House Bill 1031 by Representative Moreno and Senator Hodge, concerning the weight of motor vehicles that are subject to regulation when being towed without owner's consent.
Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the adoption of all the bills on general order, second reading of bills consent calendar, and their associated committee reports, including Senate Bills 119, 132, and 97, and its local government committee report, and House Bills 1081 and 1031 and its Transportation Committee report.
Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports? The motion before the body is the adoption of all the reports to all the bills on general order's second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the reports are adopted. Is there a discussion on any of the bills listed on the general order consent calendar? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the general order second reading of bills consent calendar. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise in report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
Bill Report 2014, Madam President, your committee of the whole Basic Report is out in consideration of the following attached bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 119, Senate Bill 132, Senate Bill 97 as amended, pass on second reading in order and gross place accounted for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1081, House Bill 1031 as amended, pass on second reading in order to revise place accounted for third reading and final passage.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Is there any discussion on the committee of the whole report? Seeing none, the question for the body is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 119, Senate Bill 132, Senate Bill 97 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1081, House Bill 1031 is amended, passed on second reading, and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General orders, second reading of bills. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of general orders second reading of bills.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The Senate will resolve itself into a committee of the whole for purposes of considering general orders second reading of bills calendar. Senator Nicholson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order and the court rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 138?
Senate Bill 138 by Senators Kafalis and Lundberg and Representatives Sonnenberg and Foote concerning civil immunity for community volunteers assisting at an emergency.
Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 138 and the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report.
To the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report. Senator Kafalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Basically, the amendment in the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee achieves the original goal of this bill, which is to provide limited protection from liability for well-intentioned volunteers that are connected with an established nonprofit organization who want to assist in times of emergencies such as wildfires and floods. The amendment basically takes the reference to volunteer and it refers it to the Volunteer Services Act, which is currently in statute. So we're making sure that the definition in this bill aligns with the current definition of volunteer, and by doing so, we're ensuring that volunteers are part of a coordinated effort, that they're supervised, that they're working with incident management teams and so forth. And we're also making sure that this bill conforms to civil immunity protections that are already in statute, and that's essentially what the committee report does, and we would welcome your support of the committee report.
Is there any discussion to the committee report?
You can go next, sir, if you want.
Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it. To the bill. Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this is one of the bills that came out of the the Flood Recovery Committee as simply addressing some concerns that some had. And let me give you a couple of examples that were brought to our attention in the committee. I'm thinking of a couple of groups down in Boulder County, just citizens who saw a need out of these floods and pitched in and started to fix it. And then after a few days, they figured out that they needed to be a little more organized, and so they, did the proper things in that respect. But there was still that nagging concern of what sort of liability exposure, and if you've ever been involved with any nonprofit organizations, that's a concern you have, and you have to answer those questions, and this is to help clarify that. One other example, there was a remarkable organization from Larimer County that came to the committee as well and spoke to us. They're called Serve 6.8. And they actually grew out of a church up in the Fort Collins area, Timberline Church. And their whole goal, and they've been in place for a while, is to help in emergency response. They do what they can wherever the need is, be it here at home or anywhere else as well. And I would recommend that you look up 6.8 is actually in reference to a couple of passages in the Old Testament from Jeremiah and from Isaiah, and they're both in chapter 6, verse 8. So look it up. These are examples of citizens doing what they can to help their neighbor. And I remember when they reported to the committee, Serve 6.8, and I believe it was in December that they came and spoke to the committee. And even at that point, they said, we're sending up over 20 people a day to help in the Glen Haven area, just to help in recovery. Well, Senate Bill 138 clarifies the immunity issues, and it's very similar to the Good Samaritan passages or statutes that we have and other areas, the Volunteer Services Act, et cetera, et cetera. You can go down through many areas in our statute that deals with this. But this gets down to what's happening on the ground in a situation like these floods. And we saw it important to add this much more clarity and to not protect somebody from any reckless intentional actions, but to ensure that the Good Samaritan who shows up to help and is organized with some of these nonprofit groups is fully protected from the liability issues that would just be unnecessary in that situation. We urge its adoption of Senate Bill 138.
Senator Koufalas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I simply wish to reinforce the eloquent comments Senator Lundberg made. We had testimony from various nonprofit groups, and certainly with the floods of 2013 in Larimer County with the High Park fire, clearly there is a critical role for the citizenry, for nonprofit organizations, for faith-based nonprofit organizations like Serve 6.8 to engage in those efforts in terms of response and recovery. We want to make sure that this aligns with current protections and that folks are part of a coordinated effort to make sure that there are no unintended consequences. I respectfully add to Senator Lundberg and ask for your support of Senate Bill 138 as amended.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to just speak in support of this bill and the, I guess we on the amendment right now?
No.
Okay, we're on the bill. I got deeply involved with this, I think it was back in 2008 on, at that time, House Bill, I think it was 1097. We started that out as a liability bill for members of the Civil Air Patrol that were helping out in emergencies, and several other parts of the government like volunteers or rescue teams, things like that, that work with county sheriffs, said, hey, we need that process too. And part of that process was to set up a system of memorandums of understanding between and among different counties to allow a person that was certified to respond in emergencies, for instance, in Larimer County, to also be certified or recognized with their emergency training and credentials in, let's say, Weld County. It's a voluntary system based upon the control that they have in different counties. Obviously, county sheriffs, police, first responders, fire departments need to know when they're getting volunteers that they're not putting them in harm's way and putting them, liability is a major concern of this. This bill, I believe, extends that, and not only for volunteer workers, but I think in the future we need to be thinking about even some for-profit companies, for instance, bulldozer operators that are typically not surveyed in this state. We don't know where all the bulldozers are, but when we need them for firefighting, we need to know that those resources can be used in emergencies. And right now, part of our system resists the use of volunteers because of these liability problems. I think this is one bill, and we're going to have a theme this morning, I think, about some progress that has been made and bills to implement lessons learned that we've had in the last several years, even all the way back to the Hayman fire. But certainly the Hayman, the Waldo Canyon, the Black Forest fire, all the flooding that we've had is now coming out, and we have operationalized the emergency operations in this state. And I'll be coming back to the mic in other ways because there are probably 5 bills up today where the people of Colorado need to realize that we're making changes now. And I won't talk about the other bills yet, but this is one element. We have a lot of incremental legislation that's going through in a lot of different areas that is really making the state of Colorado more prepared to respond to emergencies. I think that's what our citizens want and expect, and as we learn these lessons, I think we've had a very good process of identifying things on the flood committee, a variety of things where we're working together on these things to make a lot of progress. So I thank Senators Lundberg and Fallis for bringing this forward.
Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just want to echo those comments made by the previous speaker here. In Boulder, I mean, we had people coming literally from all over, volunteering, willing to help, and we couldn't put them to work because of the issues that are being dealt with here. So I think this is critical. I thank you for bringing it forward and would ask for an aye vote as well.
Senator Koufalis.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for your excellent comments. We renew our motion for the adoption of Senate Bill 138 as amended and respectfully ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 138. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill is passed. Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we lay over Senate Bill 110 until Friday, February 21st.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 110 until Friday. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The motion passed. Mr. Majors, please read the title to Senate Bill 121.
Senate Bill 121 by Senator Lambert and Representative Young concerning financial assistance for local governments after a declared disaster emergency.
Senator Lambert.
Thank Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 121 and the associated committee report from the Committee on Local Government, C001.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will make comments on this a little more extensively as part of the bill, but I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of the local government committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, on the last bill, not the one that was laid over, but the one before that, we were talking about giving more liability to our wonderful volunteers in the state, or removing liability from their actions in case of emergencies. As I mentioned at that time, we're going to be looking at several bills today that make the state more ready for response to emergencies and to recovery from those emergencies. Over the last several years, we have suffered through those emergencies, but I think especially after the Lower North Fork fire, we realized that we needed to do something different. And we started some reorganizations. We'll be addressing those in a few minutes. But in the flood emergencies we just went through, I think the governor and the legislature have correctly identified that when whole towns get wiped out, when their infrastructure gets wiped out, when their tax base gets wiped out, and they face daunting challenges, especially when we had, I don't know what the final count was, 26 counties, I think, where we declared emergencies because of last September's flooding. We have a daunting task to pick up the pieces. And we need to be looking at this as a statewide issue, not just a burden on particular counties. We heard in committee on this bill that because FEMA operates their assistance based upon county lines, there were problems. And I'm sorry, Madam Chair, that's actually the next bill, but I think it applies here too. When people cross county lines, sometimes they're left out of part of an emergency declaration. They might be a little richer, have a better tax base, things like that, and they get excluded even though they've suffered some serious damage. What Senate Bill 121 attempts to do is to allow the governor, under his emergency authority, to help backfill some of the money that the counties are liable for. Right now, there's a 75-25% match where FEMA and the federal government, in place of these emergencies, where we have an emergency declared by the governor and then by the President of the United States, the federal government signs up for 75% of that liability for recovery. But they expect the local governments to take up 25%. In towns like Lyon, where all of their emergency equipment was right in the middle of a river that got washed away downstream, that makes it very, very problematic whether they're able to provide that money. I think they had 2 banks in their town, one had to close. So how do they refinance their recovery? So what this bill does is allow the governor to make decisions, as he did during the emergency, but really didn't have a statute to back him up, but to allow the governor to distribute state funds to help those local communities according to the amount of that, of their need. And then it allows, we have other bills that have passed through that allow the governor to replenish some of the cash funds perhaps that have been used, and it provides oversight and transparency to the legislature as to how those monies are being used. It does that through reports to the Joint Budget Committee, but it's basically a letter or report to the legislature to make sure that the governor is not financially irresponsible or spending money in the way he or future governors might have to. The committee report was also something that we worked on, and all of this bill, this was my bill, but we've been working on this very extensively with the governor's office, especially OSPB, and the committee report extends this beyond FEMA to include the United States Department of Transportation, and in both cases, the governor is also then allowed, once we're further into a disaster emergency, to go back and change the numbers. It's now a one-time thing. If he exceeded or didn't provide enough revenue or money to meet that emergency, it allows them to come in, take another look at it, and redistribute those figures, but always within the purview and the oversight of the legislature. That's what this bill does, and I would ask for an aye vote. Again, part of one of several incremental changes that I think we're doing in the state that really operationalizes the governor's police authority to protect health, life, and safety for people of Colorado.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 121. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is passed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1004?
House Bill 1004 by Representatives Foote and Humphrey and Senators Nicholson and Lambert concerning emergency management and in connection therewith eliminating and reorganizing two entities within the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, the Department of Public Health and Safety, and authorizing the governor to provide individual assistance during a disaster absent a presidential declaration of the same.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, Madam Chair and I are co-prime sponsors of this particular bill with Representatives Foote and Humphrey in the House. We had learned a process. Thank you. I move House Bill 10004, and there are no committee reports, Madam Chair.
Proceed.
All of you should have received a little handout, a little Rube Goldberg diagram on your desks that explains a little bit more about this bill. We have consolidated almost all of our emergency management organizations now under the Department of Public Safety. You recall starting back with the Lower North Fork fire, when we had our Forest Service as part of Colorado State University, that was one of the first things we needed to look at. Were these people qualified? Were they in the right chains of command to actually respond to forest fire emergencies? And with some of the shortfalls that we found out about at that time, it was decided, or we decided as a body, to move the Forest Service and the firefighting organizations out of CSU and the Department of Emergency Management out of the Department of Local Affairs. We also had a division in the governor's office that dealt with Homeland Security issues. That office had originally been in the Department of Public Safety. It got moved to DOLA. Then it went to the governor's office. And after the Lower North Fork fire, we decided, well, that's probably not such a good idea. So let's move that back and consolidate that under the Department of Public Safety. With all of that moving around, Department of Public Safety has been sort of a single manager of our emergency responses. And interestingly, in Colorado, that's very similar to the way our counties are organized. Even for firefighting, our fire managers are now under our chief cop, the executive director of the Department of Public Safety. What this bill does is move the Emergency Planning Commission functions also to the Department of Public Safety. We had been managing our emergency response grants through a commission in Department of Local Affairs, and I think one of the reasons we put them under the Department of Local Affairs back after 9/11 was because they probably wrote grants better than anybody else in the state. Unfortunately, this commission has not been used very often. I think once, perhaps they've met since they've been created. And we also need to operationalize the money that's going out to the local communities, and where better to do that in Department of Public Safety. So this basically cancels the Emergency Planning Commission and transfers those functions to the Department of Public Safety in the Emergency Planning Subcommittee, which is directly integrated right into the governor's office to make those decisions. I thank the chair for being a co-sponsor on this, and I would ask for an aye vote as amended.
Is there?
I'm sorry, there's no amendment. Sorry.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1004. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bill is passed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title to Senate Bill 126?
Senate Bill 126 by Senator King concerning the reclassification of the State Lottery Division as a Type 1 agency.
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 126.
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate Bill 126, which is a Legislative Audit Committee bill, moves the Colorado Lottery to a Type 1 organization. It focuses on best practices and accountability, and focuses on maximizing the revenue that lottery creates to benefit the beneficiaries of the lottery, which is GOCO, Conservation Trust, schools, capital construction, and others. And I would ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, could you go into a little detail on, there was an audit in '03, I guess, that put this into a Type 2, and now they're wanting to go back to a Type 1. What changed since then? What have they fixed that the legislature found back then through an audit that they should have changed to that type of setting? And if you could kind of just expand on that just a little, please.
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Renfro. A little bit of history in reference to lottery. In fact, lottery was a Type 1 commission when it first started. Unfortunately, at that time, we didn't have Amendment 41. We didn't have a lot of the transparency that we have now. And as a result, in 1982, this legislature decided to put lottery under the Department of Revenue, under the purview of the Department of Revenue for more oversight. And we passed that, and lottery has been under the Department of Revenue since then. As chair of the Legislative Audit Committee, we do an audit on lottery every 3 years. We just completed an audit in 2013, August of 2013. There were quite frankly, some concerns about a lack of best practices, some concerns about a lack of accountability, concerns by the audit committee about the fact that, quite frankly, the Department of Revenue had a lot on its plate, a lot it was responsible for with the new medical marijuana statutes and enforcement, with the recreational marijuana stuff. There just was a lot there. And I think if not the audit committee's concern, my concern was that there was a lack of focus on making our lottery, Colorado Lottery, the best lottery in the United States. And there were things that came out in the 2013 audit that I was very concerned about, and so went back and looked at all of the audits since 2003. One of the things that came out in the 2013 audit was the fact that Colorado is the highest payer of winnings in the United States. Now, because that is such a large program, a 2 or 3 percentage point difference in the payout and winnings, even though might not be all that important to that winner, it is very important to the revenue coming into lottery and the revenue going to GOCO, schools, the Conservation Trust Fund, and so forth. Colorado pays 63% out in winnings. Every other state in the union is around 60%. So since 2011, Colorado has left $10.3 million on the table every year. That amount that should be going to GOCO and to our other beneficiaries. And really with no evidence to prove that by paying 63% versus 60%, more people are going out and buying lottery tickets. In other words, it's not improving sales, so why are we doing that? And it is that lack of focus on best practices that the audit committee, myself, and others concerned said, maybe we should turn lottery back into a Type 1 commission where you have a director that is accountable to the governor, to the legislature for best practices, and accountable for these type of situations where we're not doing best practices. And that is why we brought the bill. That is why it's an audit committee bill. And again, I would ask for your aye vote.
Senator Guzman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to come up and support Senator King and his movement of this particular bill. I'm a member of the Audit Committee as well, and indeed we have no, fundamentally, or no real, we're not here to place a dark cloud over anyone or whatever. We're really members of the Audit Committee trying to move an opportunity to strengthen the role of our lottery here in Colorado, and maybe to strengthen with some of the oversight changes, the opportunity for all of those who receive funds through the lottery to be able to experience a greater amount of resources in the future. So I support the bill. I can't remember if our audit committee, if it was unanimous. Was it unanimous? It was unanimous that we move this forward. So I ask for an aye vote as well.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Senator, I have just a couple more questions for you, just to clarify, make sure I understand. So we're moving it out of Department of Revenue, and it'll just be a Tier 1 under their own commission division, and so they won't have that authority. Is that move, that's what the bill does, and I understand that. So is that move going to give then the division and the lottery, you think, the latitude to address all the other concerns that were in that audit, or why aren't those part of this bill? Is that something that should be done at rulemaking level, or that's just kind of my question to you, I guess, from those other things that were in the audit about the way the lottery and the things you brought up. And so is that something that you see happening in the future, or is that a wait and see to see how pulling this out happens first without changing anything else within the program?
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Renfro. I think the goal and the objective of the audit committee was to focus lottery on lottery and have accountability of that lottery director, that when you're leaving $10.3 million on the table year after year, that somebody can step up and say, I'm responsible for that. There were other things that were brought out in this performance audit that we were very, very, very concerned about. But I think that ability to focus on solely lottery would allow that director and that commission to do their job to the best of their ability, not being distracted by having to implement medical marijuana, implement recreational stuff. And I think that the audit committee, the state auditor, and quite frankly myself believe that that ability to, one, focus on best practices to make lottery the best lottery in the United States is one outstanding goal, and two, having the accountability of that director and that lottery commission to be able to say you are accountable for the good things that you do, and you're also going to be accountable for when maybe you're not paying as much attention as you should, and you will be accountable to the governor and to obviously the lottery commission and to this legislature.
Senator Schwartz.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to ask a little bit of the members of the audit committee. As we know, our lottery and funds really important programs like GOCO, Great Outdoors Colorado, and making certain that there is a level of rapport between, and I won't define that, between GOCO and the lottery, and to the extent that we are reclassifying this commission, this board, lottery, that we are not diminishing the ability for the lottery to interact with the agencies that are recipients of those funds. There's room for improvement in our lottery, and I think those people that are invested in those revenues should be in a place to be able to provide feedback and to some extent direction of how that lottery works.
Senator King.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and absolutely right, Senator Schwartz. Since 1983, lottery has given GOCO $848 million. Conservation Trust Fund, $984 million. Parks and Wildlife, $246 million. State Schools, $64 million. General Fund, $1.2, and Capital Construction Fund, $440 million. I cannot imagine that GOCO or any of these other groups are happy about the idea that we pay out 63% in winnings, the highest of all 50 states, and leave $10.3 million a year on the table that could be going to those organizations. And I have been, I've had conversations with those organizations concerned about the fact that the amount of revenue going to them has not increased. It has been a very static level, and concerned about that. I think that they want best practices. They want some accountability. And I'm not saying that they're complaining about accountability. That is the audit committee's job. That is our job to go and look at that. But I do think that you're absolutely right, that there has to be a very good relationship between the beneficiaries and lottery. And the beneficiaries have to know that lottery is doing best practices within their abilities to maximize those benefits. And that really, I mean, audit committee, our goal is to be the watchdogs of good government. Our belief is that by turning this into a Commission 1, we are doing that because we are making accountability and best practices.
Senator Rivera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support this bill with the understanding that the Lottery Committee and Commission will see the value in maintaining the lottery offices down there in Pueblo, Colorado. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 126. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The bill is passed. Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise in report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 14, 2014, Madam President, your committee of the whole Baker City report is under consideration the following types of bills being second reading thereof, makes following recommendations thereon. Senate Bill 138 is amended, Senate Bill 121 is amended, Senate Bill 126. Passed on second reading and ordered engrossed, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1004 passed on second reading and ordered revised to place on the counter for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 110 laid over until February 21st, 2014, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of the report.
Is there any discussion on the committee of the whole report? Seeing none, the question for the body is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 138 is amended, Senate Bill 121 is amended, Senate Bill 126 passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1004 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 110 laid over until February 21st and retaining its place on the calendar. Committee reports.
February 13, 2014, Madam President, the Committee on Education has under consideration and had hearing on the following appointments. Recommends the appointments be confirmed. Members of the Board of Trustees for Adams State University, effective December 31st, 2013, for terms expiring December 31st, 2017. Arnold Salazar of Alamosa, Colorado, Democrat, to serve as the representative of Alamosa County, reappointed. Kathleen J. Rogers of Alamosa, Colorado, Republican, to serve as the representative of Alamosa County, appointed. And Randy Wright of Alamosa, Colorado, Republican, appointed. February 13, 2014, Committee on Education, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 136 be postponed indefinitely. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends following Senate Bill 125 be amended as follows and as submitted for the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following Senate Bill 1232 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends following House Bill 1233 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1234 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1235 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1236 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1237 be referred to the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1238 be amended as follows and as amended before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1239 before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1240 before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations, after consideration of the Mayor's Committee, recommends the following House Bill 1241 before the Committee of the Whole favorable recommendation with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1242 referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1243 be amended as follows, and as amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1244 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1245 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1246 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1247 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1248 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1249 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation, with the recommendation be placed on the consent calendar. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1250 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1251 be amended as follows, and as amended be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 14, 2014, Committee on Appropriations. After consideration of the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: House Bill 1252 be referred to the Committee of the Whole, favorable recommendation. February 13, 2014, Madam President, the Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy has had under consideration and has had hearing on the following appointments. Recommends the appointments be confirmed. Members of the State Agricultural Commission for a term expiring March 1st, 2015. Segundo S. Diaz, Valamos, Colorado, to serve as an unaffiliated and Agricultural District 3 member, and occasioned by the resignation of Ernest D. Ford of Center, Colorado, appointed. February 13, 2014, Madam President, the Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy has had under consideration and has had a hearing on the following appointment. Recommends the appointment be confirmed. Member of the State Board of Stock Inspection Commissioners for a term expiring May 1st, 2017, Daniel Patrick McCarty of Parachute, Colorado, representing non-confinement cattle industry, appointed. February 13, 2014, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 115 be amended as follows, and as amended before the Committee on Appropriations with favorable recommendation. February 13, 2014, Committee on Agriculture, Natural Resources, and Energy. After consideration, the Mayor's Committee recommends the following: Senate Bill 103 be amended as follows, and as amended for the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation.
Yes, we did.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the Senate take up the following bills: House Bill 1232, House Bill 1233, House Bill 1234, House Bill 1237, 1239, 1241, 1242, 1245, 1246, 1248, 1249 on special orders. And I'm asking, before I make the formal motion, Madam President, to have our three JBC members come up. These are on consent calendar. I will make that motion. But basically, just to explain to all of us what we're going to be doing in the next hour or so.
Senator Stebbins.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Senator Heath, and hopefully this doesn't take an hour. This morning, the Appropriations Committee considered 22 bills in the supplemental appropriation package for the current 13-14 budget year, and the motion that Senator Heath has just offered is to run those on special orders this morning on the Senate floor. All the bills came out of appropriations. Only a couple bills picked up a no vote. Many of them are on a consent calendar, so actually I think we can do this in probably under an hour, but maybe it'll take about that.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, members. If I can have your attention for a second. In the JBC, we call this death by supplementals. Okay, remember that supplementals are changing this year's budget. This is not the budget yet, but we have to make some emergency changes in all of these supplementals, either to balance things like the School Finance Act and things like that, so we can close out the year in balance. And plus, there's some new urgent things that we need to do. I personally will not have a problem if you vote for or against or whatever. I mean, it's not, I mean, it's part of our process, but I do want everybody to be informed and understand fully what is in each one of these bills. The Budget Committee staff has prepared this, what do we call this, lavender? Lavender. The lavender-looking book, which explains each one of these bills. We do have a couple that have been amended this morning that we'll explain later. That is not covered in this book, but all of you should have had this distributed to you. So if you have any questions, please look at the Lavender book, and any one of your JBC members would be glad to answer any questions about any one of the bills in particular.
Thank you, Senator Hodge.
Thank you. And I do want to emphasize, use the Lavender book, because if you pull the bills, all the bills are a bunch of numbers on a spreadsheet. So anyway, enjoy.
All right, Mr. Majority Leader, you want to round off your motion and give...
Yes, I will. Thank you, Madam President. So I move that the Senate take up the bills that I just previously listed on special orders consent at the hour of 10:28.
All right, you've heard the motion to take up special orders consent at the hour of 10:28. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The motion's adopted. We'll take up special orders consent to consider second reading of bills consent calendar at the hour of 10:28. Okay. Senate will come back to order. Special orders, second reading of bills. Okay, we'll take a couple minutes to get the calendars distributed. Senate is in recess. Senate will come back to order. Special order, second reading of bills, consent calendar, Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
Motion before the body is to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of special orders consent. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for purposes of considering special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Nicholson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the Coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles of all the bills on the special orders? Okay. We are going to take just a minute to get all the bills together. We'll take a brief recess. The committee will come to order, and the Coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the titles of the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar?
House Bill 1232 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Agriculture. House Bill 1233 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Corrections. House Bill 1234 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Education. House Bill 1237 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Higher Education. House Bill 1239 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Judicial Department. House Bill 1241 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Local Affairs. House Bill 1242 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Natural Resources. House Bill 1245 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Public Safety. House Bill 1246 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Revenue. House Bill 1248 by Representative Duran, Senator Statement concerning supplemental appropriation to the Department of Treasury. House Bill 1249 by Representative Duran and Senator Statement concerning funding for the capital construction and making supplemental appropriations in connection therewith.
Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the following bills on special order, second reading consent calendar. House Bill 1232, House Bill 1233, 1234, 1237, 1239, 1241, 1242, 1245, 1246, 1248, and 1249, and ask for an aye vote.
The question before the body is the adoption of all the committee reports to all the bills on the special orders, second reading of bills consent calendar. I apologize, since there are no committee reports, we are back to the bills. The question before the body is the adoption of all the bills on the special order, second reading of bills consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the bills are adopted. Majority Leader Heath.
I move that we rise and report.
The motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has met and had several bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 14, 2014, Madam President, your committee of the whole Baker Street report is under consideration the following attached bills being second reading thereof makes following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1232, 1233, 1234, 1237, 1239, 1241, 1242, 1245, 1246, 1248, 1249 passed on second reading and ordered revised, placed on the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion before us is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Is there any discussion? Question is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. House Bill 1232, House Bill 1233, House Bill 1234, House Bill 1237, House Bill 1239, House Bill 1241, House Bill 1242, House Bill 1245, House Bill 1246, House Bill 1248, House Bill 1249 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, we're going to now take up individual supplemental bills that were not on the consent calendar, So I move that the Senate take up special orders at this time. House Bill 1235, 1236, 1238, 1240, 1243, 1244, 1247, 1250, 1251, 1252. So I move that the Senate take up special orders for consideration of these bills at the hour of 10:40.
All righty. You've heard the motion to take up special orders at the hour of 10:40. This motion requires 2/3 vote. All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. That motion is adopted. We will take up special orders at the hour of 10:40. The Senate will stand in recess while we prepare and distribute the calendars. The Senate will come back to order. Special order, second reading of bills calendar. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for the consideration of the special orders, second reading of bills calendar.
The motion before the body is to resolve itself into the committee of the whole for purposes of considering special order, second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself into a committee of the whole for purposes of considering second reading of bills, special orders. Senator Nicholson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1235?
House Bill 1235 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the offices of the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, City Planning, and Budgeting.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1235 on second reading. There are no amendments. To the bill makes a supplemental appropriation to the Governor's office, and a couple things going on here, mostly IT related for the Office of Information Technology. There's also an appropriation here for a new tower for the digital trunk radio system. Due to some changes in local government participation, it was necessary for the state to come in and pick up a piece so that we maintain interoperability and communication services for State Patrol and other state agencies that use that. There's also an additional appropriation for some litigation expenses that the state's involved in. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 1235? House Bill 1235, I apologize. Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1235 on second reading. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Mr. Majors, please read House Bill 1236.
House Bill 1236 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1236. Members, this is the supplemental for the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing. And just in brief summary, this increases net spending by about $6.6 million. Most of that is due to higher than anticipated spending in the Medicaid program. It also increases payments to the counties by about $2.3 million to deal with enrollment issues around the Affordable Care Act. That's for my vote.
Is there further discussion? Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, if you happen to be keeping tabs on this one in your purple book, and it's got some great information on each of these supplementals, and hats off to the JBC members for all their hard work. Just call your attention to one of the changes on this, and there was good explanation this morning in approps, and I appreciate that. But this one is dealing with a large chunk of the money that is that we're seeing as far as the increase here in the supplemental. Has to do with a accounting error. That's the next one. Which one are we on? I'm sorry.
Say never mind.
HICPA.
1236.
This is
Grantham.
a never mind moment that I would like to rewind and pretend this never happened.
Thank you, Senator Grantham. Is there a further discussion on Senate or House Bill 1236? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1236. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The bill is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1238?
House Bill 1238 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Human Services.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1238, and I move the Appropriations Committee report.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee report includes money for the CHAT system, which is the child welfare system, and it is behaving badly and needs some fix.
Is there further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, all those in favor of the committee report say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. To the bill, Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bill includes almost $8 million to correct accounting errors, as previously mentioned, since 2010 in this department. It has funds to keep working on CBMS. It has some cost of living adjustments for the old age pension. It has some contract placements purchase. The hotline for child abuse and neglect gets some money. There's some money for the Juvenile Parole Board, an Adult Assistance Program Administration, and Mental Health First Aid are all in this appropriation. I ask for your aye vote.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to mention to the senator from Fremont County, we're now on House Bill 1238.
Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's my pleasure to be up here to talk for the first time on supplementals. This is the one where we're talking about the accounting error I was trying to earlier. And Senator Stedman earlier this morning gave a good explanation of this as far as the history on it, and where we are looking at this department and seeing a $7.8 million increase due to this accounting error. Folks, that is obviously rather significant, and something that when we look at a department and what it's costing us as a state and so many things when we're fighting over so much money over such important programs, to have a department do this to this chamber and do this to this state is inexcusable. The JBC members are doing what they need to do on this supplemental to account for this, and I get that. But folks, as just a matter of principle for me in talking about what the irresponsibility of this department and costing the taxpayers of this state $7.8 million, I have to be a no vote.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The senator is correct here technically. These errors apparently were made in 2011, and because we obligated money that had federal match, it kind of magnified the problem. It doubled the problem because we requested federal money, then now we have to pay it back because we found the error. So that is a very unfortunate series of events, but you know, as we go through and audit these things or revisit them after some of these are passed, you know, we have had errors. In this particular case, it's a pretty big error. There are other moving parts to this as well, and you should realize that this last year when the governor had asked for about $10 million, well, more than that, to have mental health initiative, there were some contracting problems with that. It has been delayed, so we are far below the level of spending that was originally requested and passed by this body for some of those mental health initiatives. I think that included some anticipated expenditures, actually increase of about $1.3 million for higher expenditures at the mental health institutes, about $1 million for child abuse hotline, but we're actually taking $10 million out because of the delayed implementation of some of the mental health initiatives so that we don't have these kinds of errors rippling through the budget into the future. So that is part of the oversight and discussions we have on the Budget Committee to really balance things correctly at the end of the fiscal year.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to concur with both my colleague from the Budget Committee and also with Senator Grantham. You know, this is an unfortunate and conspicuous error on the part of the department regarding some child welfare programming funds, and it is true that we drew down Title IV-E matching funds that we were not entitled to and that have to be repaid. That's over $1 million worth of what we're taking care of here in this bill. And while I want to agree with Senator Grantham that it's disappointing that we're in this position, I also want to suggest to the body that this is no reason to vote against the bill. These are necessary adjustments and things that were caught in audits. The federal matching funds we weren't entitled to draw down the amount that we did. We need to correct that. That's what this bill does, and I'd ask for your aye vote.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think we would actually neglect an opportunity here because we had an amendment from committee on this bill. I think that's another thing that the body should be aware of. Back in 2010, we implemented a new child care, a piece of child care management software called CHATS. It just happened that, as far as we can tell, that software was approved by the department before the OIT consolidation of all the personnel. I think it was about 500-600 people, right? We moved across the whole government to at least over to the Office of Information Technology. And I think what we've seen over the last couple of years is that we still have a lot of challenges in our IT systems, but things are progressively getting better. Unfortunately, in 2010, we didn't really have a lot of that authority within the Office of Information Technology. And ever since they've purchased and implemented the chat system, we have had a lot of Band-Aids on it because it's frankly, it's a bad piece of software. So our JBC analyst that deals with the Office of Information Technology actually proposed the amendment that we just voted on in committee to continue to fix this software. As problems are identified, we need to fix the system. But we've also had some very important offline discussions that the chat system is probably a good case study for how not to buy software. And there were several different things, lessons learned from that system that we should document and not repeat in the future. So we're fixing it right now according to what we have, but in the future we need to have a more robust system with all our departments in cooperation with OIT to make sure when we accept a piece of software that it's effective, it's ready to go, that the data are transparent and validated, and it actually works the way it's supposed to. And this is a problem that's been going on in the state for decades. But I think we're gradually fixing these things as they come up, and we've definitely had discussions about where to put our resources to help this in the long run.
Senator Newell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to reiterate that the Joint Technology Committee has also been looking into this and supporting those efforts in making sure that it is more streamlined for sure. And so having that help from OIT now will be helping that system. So I did want to reiterate that we've been looking into that and also supporting this as well.
Is there further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1238. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1240?
House Bill 1240 by Representative Duran and Senator Stedman concerning a supplemental appropriation in the Department of Law.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1240. It's the supplemental for the Department of Law. The Department of Law is getting reappropriated funds from the Governor's Office for the defense of Cook et al. Versus Hickenlooper, which has to do with House Bill 1224 and House Bill 1229. Also, they are getting $503,000 cash funds from the State Land Board to pay for litigation on the Lowry Range. That also has reappropriated funds of about $185,000 for defense of the toxicology unit at the Department of Public Health and Environment. And finally, it is getting money from DNR, reappropriated funds, to support increased legal services that the Division of Water Resources expects. I ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question. Senator Grantham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. When we were dealing with these lawsuits, we dealt with it back on 1235 as well, and on this one. We see some of these lawsuits occasionally on supplementals and in the budget specifically named, like Lobato, and then the sheriff's case here as well. Why do we don't often see specific cases mentioned when we're talking about these budget items, so if I could get an explanation on that.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the question. The timing, of course, we had planned according to certain planning factors for this year's budget during the last session. That's when we closed this out. Now, you bring up a very good point here that there are two very important cases. One has been settled, the Lobato decision. That's now out of the court, and we do not have to continue to pay for that case, and we need to basically return that money or cease the spending of that money in this fiscal year because we haven't used it. The other case that my colleague talked about was the sheriff's gun case, I guess you could call it. That is a new case since last year. And one of the things, I look at this as sort of a division of, or separations of powers issue. When cases come up against the state of Colorado, we have a fiduciary responsibility to pay for those cases to go to the judiciary system, whether we like them or not. We all have our own opinions about the Lobato case. I'm sure we have our own opinions about gun cases. In this particular, in the gun case, I think actually the governor is being sued, so that money is appropriated for the governor's defense representing the state. The money you see for this in the Department of Law is reappropriated funds because the governor has to hire a lawyer who happens to be in the Department of Law. And we do this for all the departments that need legal cases. We have standardized fee schedules, everything else. So whether it's Department of Public Health and Environment that is litigating a case that has to do with environmental protection, or whether it's Department of Natural Resources that may be litigating a case on the Republican River water rights, whatever it is, we transfer those monies into the Department of Law in an organized fashion to pay lawyers to represent us in those cases. So what you see here in the Department of Law supplemental is those reappropriated funds that we do have to change by supplementals when those requirements come up.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Senator Jones, I apologize. I did not see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the same vein as some questions I asked earlier, does this include any changes that affect the Longmont local control over oil and gas operations case?
Do you know?
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is not part of this supplemental.
Senator Lambert.
And thank you. To clarify, Senator, I think we're already paying for that. It's ongoing expenses, so we discussed that in last, in the 13-14 budget when we passed that last year. The supplementals don't change that, so it's ongoing. What you see are the changes through the supplemental to the existing budget.
Is there further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1240 on second reading. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title of House Bill 1243?
House Bill 1243 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of Personnel and Administration.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1243, and I move the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
The motion is for the Committee on Appropriations. All those in favor? I'm sorry.
I want to speak to the report.
Oh, Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Appropriations Committee report adds a little bit more than $2 million in general fund to this department's budget this year for the purpose of paying settled claims arising out of the lower North Fork fire. And many of you will recall that Senator Cadman and Senator Morse were instrumental in passing legislation a couple sessions ago to set up a process for these claims to be settled through the State Claims Board. And in last year's budget, we appropriated a certain amount of money to settle some of the claims that had reached settlement early. There are more than a dozen claims still pending from this incident, and as they move through the process and the Claims Board approves the proposed settlements, we have done our best to appropriate the monies through last year's budget and now through this year's supplemental budget cycle. And I think this is important, and I wanted to speak about this. This bill passed unanimously through committee this morning. We could have put this on the consent calendar, but I wanted to speak about it on the floor just to let the body know that we are, meeting our end of the bargain in terms of paying for losses that the state is liable for, or that we've created a mechanism for us to admit liability and settle these claims. But also, we're trying to do this as promptly as possible because there are more than a dozen claims still in the pipelines. Some, I understand, are likely to settle in the next few weeks or the next month or so. Some may never settle. But I think our actions today in making supplemental appropriations available to promptly pay the claims that do process through the Claims Board is really a gesture of good faith to the parties that are trying to negotiate settlements still through this process. And that's the reason we wanted to include this in the supplemental package. We only found out about these claims being approved by the Claims Board earlier this week, and our staff did some yeoman's work overnight, actually, to get the amendments ready for these appropriations to be included in this bill. And again, it's because we're keeping our end of the bargain and sending a signal of good faith to the parties that are still trying to negotiate settlements for claims arising out of that fire. When we get to another bill here in the package, there will be further amendments that we'll be discussing that will illustrate where the $2 million in general fund at issue with this committee report are drawn from. But for now, I would just wanted you to know that that's why we've amended this bill, and would ask for your support for the Appropriations Committee report.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to add a little bit of detail on this because I think it's important. First of all, this is, we need to put this in context. This is kind of historical when a state waives its sovereign immunity, admits culpability in an emergency situation like this. And I think for the last, well, since spring of 2012, we've been going out of our way to correct those problems. Back when we were talking about that other bill, I showed you this Rube Goldberg diagram that got distributed to you. This really motivated a lot of change in the state in a lot of ways. I would like to mention in one thing in particular, we had some reporters from Channel 7, especially Marshall Zellinger, who covered this report and educated the people of Colorado as to what was going on, and actually got a Peabody Award for doing it. That is an international press award. But I think the body was listening. We took action, and some of it was contentious on the details, but to actually have a state say, yes, we are responsible. We could hide behind that shield of sovereign immunity and say, look, as an emergency, we're not liable for property damage, for loss of life, things like that, but we didn't go that way. And I think that's very, very important. The second thing, as my colleague Senator Simmons said, we found out about this with about a 15-page authorization letter yesterday afternoon from the Attorney General's office, and Mr. Alfredo Kim from Joint Budget Committee prepared this particular amendment very quickly, boiled this down into something we could execute very quickly. Hopefully we'll get this out on thirds on Monday, get it back to the House, have concurrence in the House, and the governor may be able to sign this very, very quickly. This is in Department of Personnel because it executes the money to the comptroller, so we can actually write checks very quickly. So, I think we're very serious about this process, and in all of our discussions this morning about streamlining emergency management, I think this is a real milestone that we should recognize, that because of the way we've set this system up, we are trying to be as responsive as possible.
Senator Cadman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to take a moment to thank our colleagues on the JBC for being so attentive to this and getting to it so quickly. Appreciate the accolade, but it really isn't deserved by me. This body saw a situation here 2 years ago and addressed it, met our responsibilities, and there was some good work done. And frankly, for those of you that weren't here, literally returned 2 bills around that were going to fail, into a expedited situation where we were able to get relief into the hands of people whose lives were damaged and frankly destroyed by actions committed by members of one of our own departments. So there's a lot more to this than just the money. It's about rebuilding lives. It's about restoring faith in government for the people of Colorado. It encouraged folks to not litigate for damages, but to come to the table with real assessments and get real money into their pockets in frankly quite a short amount of time compared to 3, 4, 5, 6, 10-year litigation process. As the bill sponsor mentioned, there are more claims that are in the works, and hopefully we will have a chance to act on them in the coming days, and certainly within the coming weeks during this session, to continue to rebuild the folks' lives that were affected by the Lower North Fork. I appreciate your work on this.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I just want to wrap this up quickly. As Senator Cadman also noted, there are still pending claims. The Attorney General's office has advised me that they are hopeful that another handful of these claims will be settled here sometime in February or March, in time for appropriations through our long bill process. And so you'll hear about this again, but maybe in a more abbreviated fashion when we're doing the full budget next month. I'd ask for an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there further discussion? The motion before the body is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the supplemental appropriation for the Department of Personnel, and most of what's happening in this bill adjusts workers' compensation premiums. There is also about $90,000 for the legislative audio digitization process. old audio recordings of proceedings here at the Capitol from the state legislature are deteriorating on old cassette tapes and reel-to-reel tapes, and we created a committee last year to study this, and we are now implementing the right way to go about digitizing and preserving those legislative archive records for the future, and there's some supplemental funding for that purpose in this bill. I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1243 on second reading. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1244?
House Bill 1244 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning supplemental appropriation in the Department of Public Health and Environment.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1244, and I don't believe we have any committee reports on this.
To the bill, Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the supplemental for the Department of Public Health and Environment. Increases spending total spending by about $2.9 million. We did a 1331 supplemental during the interim, which authorized $2 million for a front-range air pollution study using C-130 aircraft, doing air sampling, things like that, and that is the bulk of the spending involved in this particular supplemental.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1244 on second reading. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1247?
House Bill 1247 by Representative Duran, Senator Stedman, concerning a supplemental appropriation to the Department of State.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1247. It is the supplemental appropriation for the Department of State. It includes $448,644 in cash funds, which is an accelerated payment for the election night reporting system. It includes an increase of $50,000 in cash fund spending for an election administration improvement. And it has a budget-neutral spending authority for local election reimbursement.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I look at this budget, it doesn't look like there's any general fund monies, which is good, especially in light of the fact of the over $3 million in revenue loss, and an addition of $2 million in computer costs, which could run a deficit. I think it's $5.3 million in a year or two. I just want to make sure that this does not affect general funds, and that it doesn't affect giving more money to that computer operation.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just confirm Senator Jones' question. No, this department does not receive general fund. All of their operations are funded from their cash fund.
As far as we know.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1247 on second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, will you please read the title of House Bill 1250?
House Bill 1250 by Representative May and Senator Stedman, concerning authorizing payments from the Contingency Reserve Fund for the 2013-14 budget year for school districts that are in significant financial need due to unanticipated events occurring in the 2013-14 budget year, and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1250 on second reading. Committee, this bill deals with some unique circumstances that have affected certain school districts in the current budget year. And there are really, those unique circumstances fall into two categories. And the first of that is the September floods. This bill contains relief funding for school districts that were impacted by the flooding events last September. If you are familiar with the School Finance Act, you know that on October 1 of each year, we go through a pupil count to determine the enrollment of each school district upon which their funding is based. That October 1 count was just a few weeks after the flooding event, and many families and students had been displaced by homes that were lost, roads that were washed out, the flood. And those students were temporarily displaced. They may or may not have still gone to their same school, but they weren't present and counted on October 1. And we received data from school districts in the Department of Education that showed there were a number of districts that reported they think they came up 2 students short in their pupil counts because of the flooding incident. We chose not to provide any supplemental funding for districts that came up 2 students short, but there were another group of school districts that had 15 or more students that had been attending the school prior to the flooding event, but then were displaced and did not show up in the pupil count on October 1. And those were students that had been, anticipated, budgeted. There were teachers and classrooms and desks for them. They were temporarily displaced, and it's the intent of this legislation to go ahead and provide supplemental funding to those school districts based upon those students in excess of 15 or more that disappeared from their enrollment counts when that happened on October 1. Also, because of the flooding events, roads were washed out, roads were closed, and school bus routes were forced to change radically. And a handful of school districts, I think there's about 8 or 9 districts, reported fairly large spike in transportation costs just because of the extra mileage the school buses were driving to get the students to their schools through canyons and roads that were washed out and detours of many, many miles. And so there is supplemental funding in this bill to compensate those school districts for the extra burden in their transportation budgets. That amounts to, I think it's just under $1 million between the pupil money and the transportation reimbursements. The second category of school districts that experienced particular events last year that have warranted supplemental funding through this legislation are districts that had serious drops in their assessed value and impacted their local property tax collections. There are 3 school districts that are being assisted by House Bill 1250, the Meeker School District in Rio Blanco County, the DeBeck School District in Mesa County, and the Pawnee School District in Weld County. And each of these districts has a great deal of property wealth due to oil and gas development, and due to fluctuations in oil and gas productions and prices, they saw a serious drop in assessed value. Now, normally, when a local school district's property tax collections decline, their state aid comes in and makes up the difference. But in the instance of each of these 3 school districts, they had so much assessed value and local property wealth and property tax collections as a result of that, they were not receiving any or very little state equalization money. And because of that, the negative factor in the School Finance Act was not impacting these districts. Their local property tax revenues were paying essentially all of their total program, and there was no state aid for the negative factor to be deducted from. For the past 3 years, those districts have avoided the impact of the negative factor in our School Finance Act. But now, because of declining assessed value and declining property tax collections, which these districts just found out mid-year about this impact on their local property tax collections, the negative factor is coming in and occupying all of the space that state aid would have normally come in and backfilled for any other school district. And so there's no backfill. And there's a huge loss of local property tax revenue, no state backfill. These districts were literally about to fall off of a pretty steep cliff, and this was happening to them 7 months into the current fiscal year, so they had very little opportunity to budget for and absorb those reductions in the remaining 5 months of the fiscal year. That's why the Budget Committee determined that we should provide some supplemental aid to these districts. And so there is about just a little less than $1 million, I think, for these 3 districts to provide this supplemental aid. We have made it very clear to them, and we've been in communication with them, that this is a one-time event, and that if their assessed value remains lower, the negative factor is going to come in and work budget reductions for them, just as it has for other school districts around the state for the past 3 years. And so we're preventing a sharp decline for these districts, but we are not going to hold them harmless in future years from that negative factor in our School Finance Act that affects so many other districts. And I think this, and I tell this story because it's a good illustration of what's wrong with the negative factor and how it has not worked equitably across all school districts. And even here, we're not really seeing equity because we're helping some folks who are now experiencing a pain that everyone else has been feeling for 3 years. The negative factor has not worked equitably across all school districts. It's one of the reasons why I think we should prioritize trying to reduce it and get it out of the school finance formula. That's going to take quite a bit of time because, as you are probably well aware, the negative factor totals a little over $1 billion. We're not going to be able to wipe it out overnight, but here's an example of one of the reasons why it deserves our attention. Thank you for your attention to this bill. This money will be appropriated to this CDE's Contingency Reserve Fund. Each of the school districts that are entitled to claim this supplemental relief funding will receive notification from CDE that includes the calculations of how we determined the amounts of the appropriation. So it's going to be very easy for these school districts to access the relief funding that this bill makes possible. And with your I vote today, that we can get that money out the door here in just a few weeks for them. So I ask for your support for House Bill 1250.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do support this. I'm curious about the additional schools that we could help on the negative factor. Is that something that's going? Do we need legislation for that, or is the negative factor going to be already in place to account for that in the next long bill?
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator, this bill is the legislation that provides the legislative direction for CDE about why we're putting money into the contingency fund and creating new eligibility for districts to apply for contingency funding from the department. This bill does not change the negative factor. This bill just makes one-time relief monies available either for flood-impacted districts or for these districts with assessed valuation negative factor complications. And again, we're doing this one time only. The negative factor isn't going to go away anytime soon. And these districts that have just now been impacted by it like others have for the past 3 years are going to have to adjust. We're helping them this year so they don't fall off of a steep cliff, but they are going to probably feel the impact of the negative factor as other districts are doing until we can get that out of the school finance formula.
Thank you.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also, this kind of fits into my theme for the day, that we have been responsive to emergencies. And in this particular case, again, Mr. Craig Harper of our JBC staff did an extremely complex analysis of this. And some of my caucus members, Senator Crowder, for instance, had some questions. How come these districts got it? How come these districts did not get it? And I just wanted to mention that when you have questions like that, our staff can really help, because he had voluminous information and compelling justification for why these particular districts needed help. Now, this is for the lower tax revenues on that part of it, but then also trying to identify a fair process for those who had been displaced. So, as Senator Sedman said, this is, there are really two parts of this bill. both of them related to emergencies, one the flood and one financial. But the analysis that went into this, I think, was pretty compelling. So if you do have questions for your own districts about this and want to know the status of where we are on these, I think our staff can certainly respond to those questions. And actually, we heard this morning in Appropriations Committee that one of the affected districts, I think it was Pawnee, was not aware of, I'm sorry, Senator Stedman, maybe you'd
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
revise and extend my remarks.
I will. And I'm going to jump in because actually I misspoke this morning. It's true that these 3 school districts with the assessed value financial emergency problems, the Meeker School District contacted my office directly, but in studying this, we found that there were 3 districts that were particularly acutely impacted. There are some others with some minor impacts that are not going to be offered assistance through this bill, but the 3 with the most acute impacts, we saw the numbers on paper, and it was compelled us to want to offer this relief. 2 of those districts have less than 150 students, I think, including the Pawnee School District. It has about 100 kids. And it's my understanding, and I misspoke this morning in committee, they were not even aware that they were about to fall off of this cliff until a reporter from Chalk Beat, Colorado called them. And the reporter called them because they were following our deliberations in JBC. So it wasn't Craig Harper that made that phone call, but it is true that that district, which is a small rural district, didn't even know this was about to happen to them until we took this up and a reporter contacted them to get their take on it. And so, again, I think it's an example of where, for small rural school districts, the intricacies of the school finance formula and that pernicious negative factor are a little overwhelming, and another reason why we need to keep working on that. Thank you, Madam Chair. I renew my motion for 1250. Ask for an aye vote.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick, I wanted to thank the JBC for the flood money. I assume this is probably for pupils and students in Lyons and maybe even Longmont. But every little bit counts, and getting the school district back where it should be is a great thing, and I just want to thank all of you.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1250 on second reading. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1251?
House Bill 1251 by Representative May and Senator Stedman concerning adjustments in the amount of total program funding for public schools for the 2013-14 budget year and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1251, and I also move the report of the Committee on Appropriations.
To the report.
Thank you. Members, if you recall earlier when we were talking about paying a little over $2 million worth of claims for folks that had property damage, or in this case it's property damage from the lower North Fork fire, I explained that a little later in the package we'd show you where the money's coming from. This Appropriations Committee report is what makes that $2 million worth of general fund available for appropriations for those settlement claims payments. What we're doing in this appropriation report is subtracting $2 million from the appropriation clauses that were on this bill, which is supplemental school finance funding, and backfilling those, refinancing those, if you will, with dollars from the state education fund. That's how we're making available the $2 million for the claims. That's what this committee report does. I ask for an aye vote.
Further discussion on the committee report. The motion before the body is the adoption of the committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee report is adopted. To the bill, Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, this bill is really the supplemental bill for school finance purposes, and it's required to be a statutory bill, not included in the departmental supplemental bill, because of the negative factor. Because the negative factor in the School Finance Act is expressed in statute, every time we go in and make any kind of adjustments to provide mid-year supplemental funding, we have to do this rewriting the way the negative factor is expressed in statute. The purpose of this bill is to keep whole the School Finance Act that we passed last year and make sure that the school districts are going to be receiving the per pupil funding that they had budgeted and anticipated through the passage of last year's School Finance Act. We do this every year because after we pass the School Finance Act in the spring and the session, students enroll in school in the fall. There's that October 1 pupil count that I mentioned earlier, and we get actual numbers based on actual student enrollment counts that we true up the School Finance Act appropriations to. And so part of the money appropriated through this bill is for actual enrollment counts based upon last October's counts. Also the number of students that were, the actual count of at-risk students, that's something that's not known again until after the pupil count methodology goes through. We true all that up with a supplemental this time of year. The other thing we have to true up is property tax collections, and that's the big piece of what's going on in this bill. We are backfilling $36.9 million worth of anticipated property tax revenues to local school districts that did not occur. And it did not occur because of what's going on with home values, property values across the state after the recession. Property values and our reassessment cycles lag behind economic recoveries. And so school districts collected $37 million less in local property tax revenues for their budgets this year than we had anticipated when we put the School Finance Act together last year. And actually, we're not off by that much when you consider that the total property tax revenue across all school districts are in the billions, and being off by 37 million is actually pretty small margin of error when you consider the numbers. But between the pupil count true up and the property tax true up, this bill appropriates about $56 million additional to the School Finance Act for the current budget year to keep school district per pupil revenues constant for where they are, keep the negative factor essentially constant. That's what this bill does, and it also made available the funding for the claims settlements from the fire. Ask for your aye vote.
Senator Toptrop.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I have a question for somebody perhaps on a JBC. How much of that property tax backfill comes from TIF financing? TIF financing.
Senator Stadman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Toptrop, I don't have an answer to your question. I'm sure Legislative Council staff, which produces the annual revenue forecasts on local property tax revenues, would be able to get that data for you. I think a lot of the money we're talking about here is really just due to the economy and the bubble that sort of burst on home prices in the past couple of years. And again, the reassessment cycle on properties for property tax purposes causes all this to lag a little bit behind what's really happening in the economy. That's why we're seeing this now, even though we've turned the corner and we're in a period of recovery from the last Great Recession. But if you want those specifics, I'm sure our Legislative Council staff would be able to produce those for you. I can't answer your question.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1251. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Mr. Majors, would you please read the title of House Bill 1252?
House Bill 1252 by Representatives May and Giroux and Senator Hodge concerning funding for system capacity changes related to intellectual and developmental disability waiver services in connection therewith making and reducing appropriations.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1252. House Bill 1252 concerns Intellectual and Developmental Disability Services Cash Fund. We appropriated a large amount of money to the Department of Human Services and the Healthcare Policy and Financing people to provide for moving people out of into community-based services. We provided so much money they could not spend it because it takes a lot of time and effort and pre-planning to actually get people moved out. They have reverted that money. We've taken 4.5 million of the cash funds and asked them to please do the pre-planning so that they are ready to do the moving of a larger number of people who've been on a waiting list next year. All this does is ask for them to do the planning and let us know how they plan to proceed.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For all members, I don't want to miss the opportunity here to mention that the Budget Committee has been looking at all of the intellectual and developmentally disabled services now for several years and have made a lot of changes to the way things were previously done. Transferring more programs over to HCPF was a major event in the past, but I wanted to bring to everybody's attention that deal with Health and Human Services especially. Make sure you see the Audit Committee reports that came out in December and thereafter with this particular department on vocational rehab for the developmentally disabled, as well as the operations of the regional centers. There's a lot of information on there, and frankly, the audits were identifying many problems that our committee's been asking about for probably 3 or 4 years now. And we're going to have a lot of work to do in the future in this area to fix some of those problems. We are working with the department on these. And we're going to be considering some new bills in the future to study this with more rigor. But we definitely have definite problems in the state resources that are being used for the developmentally disabled. So please go back and read those audit committee reports from December of 2013 if you have not done so. Because that'll give you the good background that you're going to need, especially in committees of reference, to understand what's going on in preparation for our 14-15 budget.
Senator Hodge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we have a new member on the Joint Budget Committee. Janice May spent 26 years in the Department of Human Services, 15 years in Denver, but she's worked Human Services in Larimer and Adams County. We actually have somebody who understands this budget and knows what it means when we put money into it. And that's been a tremendous help to how we've been able to move forward. I just needed to tell you how good she is.
Senator Renfro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just one quick question. I was trying to look through the fiscal note to see and kind of listening through one ear, so I apologize. Where are we diverting these funds to? Are we going to set them aside so that when they get their act together, they can be more aggressive at attacking the waiting list, or are we appropriating this elsewhere to spend and then have to come back to find money for them in the future?
We're what?
Senator Hodge.
Thank you. I should have known the answer to that. The supplemental package balances, and this money is part of that balancing. So we've used some of this reverted money in other parts of this budget.
Senator Renfro, would you care to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I guess my question is for this year's budget that we will, next year's budget that we'll approve in a few months, will that budget have 14 million less to deal with the developmental disabilities waiting list, or will there, how will that affect the next future budget is I guess my question.
Senator Stedman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Renfro, the base that we'll be building on will be $14 million less because of this subtraction that's occurring in this year. However, there are requests pending in the executive budget request for us to make increases to address additional waiting lists. And so we're going to have to backfill this 14 if to get back to where we were. The other thing to point out is that, as Senator Hodge said, the supplemental package balances. And so where we're subtracting money here, it's because we're spending it in other places. We didn't discuss the Department of Corrections supplemental. It was in the consent calendar that went through. But there was over $9 million in additional caseload and another million or so, I think, in additional medical expenses that's being added to the Department of Corrections. So when we subtract money from Human Services or HCPF like we've been doing, those dollars are getting moved. The $56 million supplemental I was just speaking about for school finance purposes, almost all of that is general fund this year, instead of drawing it from the state education fund, which is actually a good thing because we need to start, the mix of how much general fund and how much state education fund money we use to support the School Finance Act is important for maintaining the ongoing solvency of the state education fund. And that's one of the reasons why in the supplemental proposal, the governor asked for us to provide this money for the school districts in general fund dollars. Now, we took $2 million back and spent it on claims and refinanced it with some state ed fund money, but to a large extent, that supplemental for schools is general fund. And part of how the budget stays in, the general fund balance stays in balance is because there were some other significant negatives in the Department of Human Services.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you. And from the previous senator's question, I had some of the same questions when I first saw this because remember, we've done almost 30 bills here, each of them tweaking money, but at the end of the fiscal year, it's still got to be in balance at the end of June. So part of this was a recession back, but my question was when we have a waiting list for people with developmental disabilities, can't we spend some more of this? And as Senator Hodge mentioned, there's only so much you can absorb after we pass these within 3 months before the end of the fiscal year. So we're putting in as much as we can. We're getting ready for future expenditures in that area. We're also making some substantive changes for the whole program and the resources in those programs. So I think we're doing, as Senator Hodge said, as much as we can, as much as they can absorb, especially in the community center boards, but looking forward to more services in future years.
Is there further discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of House Bill 1252 on second reading. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Majority Leader Heath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I move that we rise and report, and while we've got our friends still up here, I'm sure I have the same feeling that all of you share. And these three people on the JBC have just done an amazing job for us again. And I know on behalf of all of us, I just want to thank Senator Hodge and Senator Lambert and Senator Stedman for their always professional work and for making us all look good. So thank you, all three of you, very, very much. And with that, Madam Chair, I would move that we rise and let's do that. I'm told I'm out of order, but I'll be out of order for this one. With that, Madam Chair, I move that we rise and report.
Motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come back to order. Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Majors, would you please read the report?
February 14, 2014, Madam President, your committee, the whole package report is under consideration of the following tax bills being second reading thereof, makes following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1235, 1236, 1238 as amended, 1240, 1243 as amended, 1244, 1247, 1250, 1251 as amended, 1252, pass on second reading in order to revise the place of the counter for third reading and final passage.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the adoption of the report.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, the question before the body is the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, committee of the whole report is adopted.
With me on this?
House Bill 1235, House Bill 1236, House Bill 1238 is amended, House Bill 1240, House Bill 1243 is amended, House Bill 1244, House Bill 1247, House Bill 1250, House Bill 1251 is amended, House Bill 1252 passed on second reading and ordered revised and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Members, just so you're aware, I have placed all the boards and commissions up for confirmation today onto the consent calendar.
Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Mr. Majors, would you please read the governor's appointments to all the boards and commissions on the consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Commissioners of State and Veterans Nursing Homes for a term expiring July 1st, 2014, Alexander E. Hall of Denver, Colorado, veteran, reappointed. For term expiring July 1st, 2017, Kathleen N. Dunham, PhD, APRN, CNM of Littleton, Colorado, who has expertise in nursing home operations and who has practical clinical experience in nursing homes, appointed. Mary Ann Terry, RN, BSN of Aurora, Colorado, who has expertise in nursing home operations and who has experience in multi-facility management of nursing homes, appointed. Members of the Waste Hire Advisory Committee for a term expiring September 9th, 2015, Lee Allen Overton of Meeker, Colorado, to serve as a waste hire hauler and occasioned by the resignation of Christopher B. Hodgins of Colorado Springs, Colorado, appointed. For terms expiring September 9th, 2016, Joel F. Baldock of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a waste hire end user, reappointed. James A. Reed of Colorado Springs, Colorado, to serve as a representative of a local fire authority from a jurisdiction that has a waste hire facility, reappointed. Members of the Board of Real Estate Appraisers for a term expiring July 1st, 2015, Peter E. Musio of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a member of the public, appointed. Scott M. Rose of Lafayette, Colorado, to serve as representative of appraisal management company, is appointed. Member of the Securities Board for a term expiring July 1st, 2016, Scott R. Saltzman of Denver, Colorado, a certified public accountant, reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments on the consent calendar, including the members of the Board of Commissioners of the State and Veterans Nursing Homes, members of the Waste Hire Advisory Committee, members of the Board of Real Estate Appraisers, and members to the Security Board.
Is there any discussion on any of the confirmations on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before the body is the confirmation of all the appointees on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of the appointees? With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Alexander E. Hall, Kathleen N. Dunham, Mary Ann Terry are confirmed to the Board of Commissioners of the State and Veterans Nursing Homes. With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Lee Allen Overton, Joel F. Baldock, James A. Reed are confirmed for the Waste Hire Advisory Committee. With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Peter E. Muccio, Scott M. Rose are confirmed for the Board of Real Estate Appraisers. With 34 ayes, 0 no, 0 absent, and 1 excused, Scott R. Saltzman is confirmed to the Securities Board. Message from the House.
February 14, 2014, Madam President, the House has passed on third reading and transmitted the revised statutes, House Bill 1122 as amended and House Bill 1007 as amended.
Message from the reviser.
February 14, 2014, we herewith transmit without comment as amended House Bill 1007 and 1122.
Signing of bills.
February 14, 2014, the President has signed Senate Joint Resolution 7.
Announcements. Sarah King.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask for a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Madam President. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's.
I want to highlight a little bit of a long and honored tradition that has gone on in the legislature and took a bit of a hiatus for a couple of years for political reasons, but in 1929, Chet and Vernie Enstrom started Enstrom's Candies. In 1966, Enstrom Candies began shipping their wonderful almond toffee all over the country, and now all over the world. Enstrom's toffee has been on the top of Mount Everest and on other expeditions. Enstrom's is still a family-owned business. Chet's granddaughter, Jamie, and her husband, Doug Simmons, oversee the operations in Grand Junction. Chet's grandson, Rick, and wife, Linda, manage the shops here in Denver. And Chet was a member of this body, and in fact sat back in Senator Balmer's desk in 1966. Enstrom's Candy employs a number of people both in Denver and in Grand Junction. The amount of work that the Enstrom's family does for our communities, both on the eastern slope and on the western slope, is long. The list is long. And it is nice to see that Speaker Ferrandino and Rick and Linda Enstrom have started that long tradition, because in 1966, Chet on Valentine's Day would bring Enstrom's toffee and put it on everyone's desk, and that went on for some time until recently. And again, just for political reasons, it was set aside for a little bit, but we're starting that tradition again, and you will find Enstrom's wonderful toffee on all of your desks and so forth. I wanted to thank Rick and Linda Enstrom, who are here in the chamber today, and Doug and Jamie Simmons in Grand Junction, all of their employees, and I would appreciate some recognition for Enstrom's almond toffee. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam President. And I will just echo and also give accolades. A couple of years ago, a group of legislators had a chance to go to Grand Junction, and we toured Enstrom's Candy and actually met with and talked with many of their employees. And one of the things that so impressed me is what good care they take care of their employees. Paying a decent wage, giving good benefits, and really extending their family. And so that's the kind of role models that we need in our state, of good business partners that treat their employees with respect, and also just building up a great economic boost for the state of Colorado. And I can't believe Ferrandino doesn't like toffee, because it's my favorite. Thank you very much.
Senator Tartar.
Thank you, and I want to thank Rick Enstrom for the service that he gave the state of Colorado when he was one of the commissioners on the Division of Wildlife. He did a great job there. Thank you, Rick.
Senator Schwartz.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to thank how living on the western slope and all those baseball tournaments we'd go to in Grand Junction, we always had to make a stop at Enstrom's so those girls could have a chance to make the trip even more enjoyable, because Aspen baseball team, softball, we always lost. So it made the trip a lot more fun. Thank you.
Other announcements? Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, President Carroll. Happy Valentine's Day to you and all of our members, colleagues, guests. I want to share with you some cake pops that were presented to us by the Colorado Licensed Beverage Association. This commercial message brought to you by them. They are sitting just to my left. Please help yourselves. And if you were expecting to take home your spouse or significant other a box of Endstroms, which we were used to having and didn't, load up on these. Load up on these. Enjoy.
Senator Nicholson.
Thank you, Madam President. If I could have a moment for personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I'd like to introduce some guests who have joined us today in the Senate chamber. It's the University of Colorado nursing professor and two of his undergraduate nursing students. So please welcome them to the chamber. Please stand.
Senator, Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam President. Just on IT, they're going to be offering another session of iPad training in HCR 0109 downstairs. And so if you've got any more questions on your IL Legislate app, or if you need any software upgrades, they will be available from 12 to 2. I'm told that State Veterans Military Affairs is meeting as scheduled this afternoon, and they've also asked me to announce that Senate Bill 139, which is scheduled to be heard in State Affairs on Monday, will not be heard. Did you have something?
We're about ready to move to adjourn unless you have another announcement.
Go ahead.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Madam President. And just one more. First of all, I request a moment of personal privilege.
Granted.
Thank you, Madam President. And in the spirit of Valentine's Day, I just wanted to make the body aware that there is actually yesterday, a new report in the Wall Street Journal that Colorado Springs is the #1 place in the United States to find love. So after we're done with afternoon meetings on the Joint Flood Committee, I intend to take advantage of that and go down and see Mrs. Senator Lambert down in Colorado Springs and hopefully have some love this weekend until I come back on Sunday. So.
I'm not sure we want to go there. Oh, my goodness.
Senator Jones.
At some point, we got to bring this thing to close.
So I can attest that as my parents honeymooned in Colorado Springs a long time ago, and they still talk about it, so it must be true.
Okay, we've had our fun. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And thank you we did a marvelous job. It's 3 minutes to 12 getting through this. Thank you all for your cooperation with that. And with that, Madam President, happy Valentine's Day to you. And I move the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, February 17th.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The Senate will adjourn until 10 a.m. Monday, February 17th.